Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into something huge. We're going to look at how two of the world's very first great civilizations, Mesopotamia and Egypt, literally built their societies from scratch. And what's so fascinating is that they came up with two totally different blueprints for how to do it. Blueprints that, as you'll see, still shape our world today. So, what does it actually take to build a civilization from the ground up? It's a massive question, right? But the answer really begins with this idea that archaeologists call the urban revolution. And look, this isn't just about stacking up bricks to make cities. It's about a fundamental, total rewiring of how human beings live together. Okay, so how do you even know when this revolution has happened? Well, a historian named V. Gordon Childe came up with something that's basically a recipe for civilization. It's like a 10-point checklist, and when a society starts ticking these boxes, you know it's made that incredible leap. And here's the thing about this list. These aren't just 10 random items. They're all connected. It's like a domino effect. Think about it. You can't have dense cities without specialists, right? People who are blacksmiths or priests instead of farmers. But you can't have specialists unless you have a reliable food surplus to feed them. And who manages all that extra food? Well, you need a ruling class, a state, to organize the whole thing. It's this interconnected engine that we're going to be looking for as we dive into our two examples. All right, first up, let's head to Mesopotamia, the land nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This is where we see our first blueprint for society emerge. And what's so wild is that the world's first cities weren't born because life was easy. Nope, they were born out of a really, really intense struggle with the environment. And this slide just lays out the central problem they were facing perfectly. Up in northern Mesopotamia, you had enough rain for farming. It was fine. But down south, the soil was unbelievably fertile, a gift from the rivers. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Without rain, that amazing soil was just part of a useless, dry desert. The only way to unlock its potential was through massive, coordinated human effort, building canals, managing the water. They had to earn it. And you can literally see that challenge driving this explosion of innovation on the timeline. I mean, look at this. Over about 2,000 years, they go from these small settlements with basic ditches in the Al-Ubed period all the way to the Ora culture. And that's where things get crazy. They invent the wheel, the plow, and, most importantly, the very first system of writing, all because they needed to manage this increasingly complex society. It all builds up until, bam, you've got the world's first true city-states. So what really lit the fuse on this explosion of complexity? What was the game changer? Well, a huge part of the answer is a single technological leap, moving from stone to metal. Getting a handle on bronze wasn't just about making better tools and weapons. Oh no. This was a technology that was about to completely rewire their entire society from the ground up. And the logic behind this is it's so cool. Just think about it for a second. The moment you have one person who is a full-time specialist, like a bronze smith, who does not farm for their own food, everything has to change. Suddenly, you need other farmers to be productive enough to create a surplus to feed that guy. And then you need someone, some central authority, to collect all that extra food and hand it out. Technology itself literally forces society to get more organized and stratified. So who was that central authority in early Mesopotamia? It was the temple. The huge ziggurats you see pictures of, they weren't just churches. Think of them more like the central corporate headquarters of the city-state. The priests were the managers. They organized the work crews for the canals, they ran the warehouses, the granaries, that stored all the food, and they even managed long-distance trade to get crucial stuff like metal and timber. Now, if you're managing all that stuff, all that grain, all those workers, you absolutely need a way to keep track of it all. And that's exactly why writing was invented. Cuneiform, this amazing wedge-shaped script pressed into clay tablets, was born out of pure economic necessity. It wasn't invented for epic poems or love letters. Nope. It was created to be a ledger. It was for keeping track of how many sheep you had or who got their beer ration. It was literally the world's first spreadsheet. Okay, so that's blueprint number one. Forged in struggle. Now let's pack our bags and travel southwest to Egypt, because there we're going to see a completely different model for how to build a civilization. And if Mesopotamia was all about the struggle against their rivers, Egypt was all about a gift from its river. This quote from an ancient Greek geographer just nails it. Egypt is the gift of the river. It perfectly captures the absolute core of Egyptian civilization. Everything. their food, their gods, their government. It all revolved around the steady, predictable, life-giving pulse of the Nile. And this is really the key difference between our two civilizations. The folks in Mesopotamia were always on edge, living in fear of their rivers. The floods could be violent and catastrophic, or they might not come at all. That constant crisis mode led to these walled-off, independent city-states that were always fighting with each other. But the Nile? The Nile was like a gentle, reliable clock. Every single year, like clockwork, it would flood, drop off a fresh layer of super fertile black soil, and then pull back. This incredible predictability created a deep sense of stability, order, and unity. And think about the geography. The entire population of Egypt was packed into this one thin, green ribbon of life along a single river that was super easy to travel on. Because of that, it was way easier to unify politically than the sprawling, divided landscape of Mesopotamia. So, around 3100 BC, it happened really fast. A ruler we know as Narmer managed to conquer and unite the whole thing, from Upper Egypt in the south to the Delta in the north. And just like that, he created the world's first large, unified nation-state. And the guy in charge of this new nation-state wasn't just some king or a head priest. No, the pharaoh was considered a living god on earth. His power wasn't just political, it was cosmic. It was literally his job to maintain what they called Ma'at, the cosmic balance of the universe. His being alive and well was what made the sun rise and the Nile flood. Now that is job security. And it gave him a kind of absolute, unquestionable authority that the kings back in Mesopotamia, who were just seen as servants of the gods, could never even dream of. So if you're a living god, how do you show that off? How do you prove your divine, absolute power? Well, you build something that literally seems to scrape the heavens. The pyramids. I mean, let's be real, these are so much more than just tombs. They were massive national projects. They were a flexing of organizational muscle, a stunning, in-your-face demonstration of the state's incredible power to command labor and resources on a scale that is still hard to wrap your head around today. So there you have it. Two civilizations, both born in a river valley, both tackling the same basic challenge of how to build a society. But they came up with two completely different answers. Let's put them side by side and really break down the differences. This chart just lays it all out so clearly. You can see how that one core difference, the environment, just cascades down and shapes everything else. In Mesopotamia, you have the chaos of the rivers leading to squabbling, walled city-states, run by a king who's basically a CEO or a general. Over in Egypt, the predictable river gives you a single, stable kingdom, ruled by an actual god-king. And this split goes all the way down to their big ideas. Mesopotamia gives us the practical stuff, law codes, bureaucracy, to manage urban life. Egypt gives us this grand ideology of divine kingship and monumental architecture. Even their writing tells the story. Practical, economic cuneiform versus beautiful, sacred hieroglyphs. So, when you boil it all down, what's the legacy? Well, Mesopotamia basically handed us the blueprint for the city. You know, that complex, messy, commercial, sometimes conflicted urban life that we all know, which absolutely relies on laws and administration to function. Egypt, on the other hand, gave us the blueprint for the nation-state. This idea of a huge territory, all unified under one powerful central government, bound together by a single powerful culture. And this is so much more than just ancient history. These choices, made thousands of years ago in response to the rivers they lived by, they laid down two fundamental patterns for how human beings organize themselves. It really makes you think, doesn't it? When you look at our world today, with its competing companies and chaotic cities on one hand, and its powerful, unified nations on the other, are we still just following these ancient blueprints? Are we still living in the shadow of the Tigris and the Nile?